In the vast expanse of space, humanity's quest for colonization pushes the boundaries of exploration. The Covenant, a state-of-the-art colony ship, embarks on a mission to establish a new haven for humankind. On board, a diverse crew of colonists and advanced androids are filled with hope and ambition. However, their journey takes a dark turn when they intercept a mysterious transmission from an uncharted planet. Drawn by the promise of a new world, they make the fateful decision to investigate. What they discover is far from the paradise they envisioned. Instead, they find remnants of a previous expedition, a haunting presence that threatens their very existence. As they delve deeper into the planet's secrets, they awaken a horror that has lain dormant, ready to unleash a nightmare beyond their comprehension. In this tale of survival, betrayal, and the relentless pursuit of knowledge, the crew of the Covenant must confront not only the deadly creatures that stalk them, but also the sinister forces that lie within their own ranks. As fear grips them and hope fades, they must navigate the treacherous landscape of a world where creation and destruction are intertwined, and where the line between humanity and monstrosity blurs. Chapter 1. The journey begins. In the endless expanse of the cosmos, the Covenant glided silently through the void, a marvel of human engineering and ambition. The colony ship, a state-of-the-art vessel, was designed to transport hundreds of settlers to a new world, a place where humanity could begin anew. On board, the atmosphere buzzed with a mixture of excitement and apprehension as the crew prepared for the challenges ahead. Captain Jacob Branson stood on the bridge, gazing out at the stars twinkling like distant diamonds. He felt a sense of responsibility for the lives entrusted to him. Beside him, his first officer, Tennessee, reviewed the ship's systems, ensuring everything functioned smoothly. The hum of the engines provided a comforting backdrop as they traversed the darkness of space. Estimated time to reach the target coordinates? Branson asked, his voice steady. About 2 weeks, Captain, Tennessee replied, his eyes fixed on the console. Everything is in the green. We're ready for anything. As the crew busied themselves with their tasks, the ship's synthetic being, Walter, moved among them with a quiet efficiency. Unlike his predecessor, David, Walter was designed to assist and protect the crew, embodying a more human-like demeanor. He offered a reassuring presence, his calm voice cutting through the tension that sometimes permeated the ship. "Good morning, everyone," Walter announced, his tone warm. "As we continue our journey, I want to remind you to take care of your well-being. Regular check-ins and rest are essential for optimal performance." The crew chuckled softly, appreciating Walter's efforts to maintain morale. Yet, beneath the surface, shadows of doubt lingered. They were venturing into the unknown, and the vastness of space often stirred feelings of isolation. Days passed, marked by routine tasks and quiet conversations. The crew shared stories of their lives on Earth, reminiscing about family, friends, and the world they had left behind. Each story served as a thread, weaving a tapestry of hope and connection amid the cold, unyielding cosmos. One evening, as the ship drifted through the silence, the crew gathered in the common area for a movie night. Laughter echoed as they watched classic films, a brief escape from their reality. For a moment, they felt united, sharing in the simple joy of human experience. But the tranquility was shattered when the ship's systems began to beep urgently. An alarm blared, cutting through the laughter like a knife. "Report," Branson commanded, his heart racing. "Receiving a transmission," Tennessee said, his fingers dancing over the controls. "It's coming from a nearby planet, unregistered and uncharted." "What's the source?" Branson asked. It's humanoid," Tennessee replied, bewildered. "The signal is fragmented but appears to be a distress call." A tense silence fell over the crew as they exchanged uncertain glances. The allure of a new world, combined with the potential for danger, hung heavy in the air. "Open a channel," Branson ordered, his voice firm. "Let's see if we can establish contact." As the crew worked to decode the transmission, the cabin was filled with the faint crackling of static. Finally, a voice broke through, shaky and desperate. "Help anyone, please. Can you trace the origin?" Branson asked, his pulse quickening. "I'm trying," Tennessee responded, his brow furrowing in concentration. "It's coming from the surface of the planet. We could investigate, Captain." Branson weighed the options, knowing the risks involved. "Set a course for the planet, but proceed with caution. We don't know what we're dealing with." The crew sprang into action, adrenaline surging through their veins. As the Covenant adjusted its trajectory, anticipation mixed with dread. What awaited them on the surface? After hours of navigation, they entered the planet's atmosphere. The view from the bridge was breathtaking. Lush greenery sprawled beneath them, dotted with glistening bodies of water. It appeared to be a paradise, inviting and serene. "Scanning for life signs," Tennessee announced, his fingers flying over the controls. "We're detecting several readings, but they're inconsistent. Could it be wildlife?" Branson speculated, trying to quell the rising tension. "Possibly, but the distress signal is still active," Tennessee replied. "We should prepare an away team." Branson nodded, knowing the weight of the decision. "All right, let's assemble a team. We need to find the source of that signal and assess the situation." As the crew prepared for the descent, they gathered in the shuttle bay. Branson chose a small team: Tennessee, the ship's pilot; Daniels, a terraforming specialist; and Walter, the android designed for support. Each member was equipped with gear for exploration and protection. "Remember," Branson instructed, his tone serious, "we don't know what we're walking into. Stay alert and communicate at all times." With that, they boarded the shuttle, anticipation and anxiety coursing through them. The descent was smooth, but as they pierced through the clouds, the lush landscape transformed into a darker, more foreboding terrain. The once vibrant greens faded into muted browns and grays. "Touching down," Tennessee announced as the shuttle landed with a gentle thud. The crew exited, stepping onto the alien soil. The air was thick and humid, carrying a strange metallic scent. As they surveyed their surroundings, the remnants of an ancient structure loomed ahead, a crumbling edifice that hinted at a long-forgotten civilization. The sight sent shivers down their spines. "Let's check it out," Branson said, leading the way. They approached the structure cautiously, the sound of their footsteps echoing in the silence. Inside, the atmosphere shifted. The walls were adorned with cryptic symbols, and the air felt charged with a history that was both alluring and ominous. The crew fanned out, exploring the eerie space. "Look at this," Daniels called, examining a piece of technology embedded in the wall. "This is advanced, much more so than anything we've encountered before. Could it be part of the Prometheus mission?" Tennessee speculated. "Possibly," Branson replied, a knot forming in his stomach. "But where are the crew?" As they ventured deeper into the structure, the distress signal grew stronger. It was a haunting reminder of the urgency behind their mission. "Over here," Walter said, his voice calm yet insistent. "I'm detecting a life sign nearby." The crew moved quickly, their hearts pounding. They reached a small chamber, and there, they found a figure huddled in the corner, a survivor, disheveled and terrified. "Help me," the individual cried, eyes wide with fear. "They're coming." "Who? Who's coming?" Branson asked, kneeling beside the survivor. "The creatures, they're not like anything you've seen. They're hunting us." The urgency in the survivor's voice sent a chill down Branson's spine. "We need to get you out of here. Can you walk?" With a hesitant nod, the survivor struggled to his feet. As they prepared to leave, an unsettling noise echoed from the depths of the structure, an alien sound that set their nerves on edge. "We need to move now," Branson urged, leading the way back to the shuttle. The survivor stumbled behind them, his breath ragged with fear. Just as they reached the exit, a shadow flitted past them, swift and silent. The crew froze, instincts screaming at them to be on guard. "Get behind me," Branson commanded, positioning himself protectively in front of the survivor. The silence was deafening, broken only by the distant sound of something skittering through the darkness. The crew exchanged anxious glances, hearts pounding as they awaited the unknown threat. "Whatever it is, it's close," Tennessee whispered, scanning the shadows. Suddenly, a creature lunged from the darkness, its form sleek and predatory. The crew reacted instinctively, weapons drawn, but the creature was faster, moving with a terrifying grace. "Get to the shuttle," Branson shouted, firing his weapon. The shots echoed, but the creature dodged with uncanny agility. They sprinted toward the exit, adrenaline fueling their flight, but the creature was relentless. It surged forward, its jaws snapping dangerously close to the survivor. "Keep moving," Branson yelled, pushing the survivor ahead of him. They burst into the open air, the sunlight blinding after the darkness of the structure. Tennessee was already at the shuttle, frantically working to open the hatch. The creature followed them out, its primal growls filling the air as it lunged at Branson. With a swift motion, he fired again, hitting the creature but not stopping its advance. They dove into the shuttle, slamming the hatch shut just as the creature thudded against it, its claws scraping the metal. "Go! Go!" Branson urged Tennessee, who was already initiating the launch sequence. The engines roared to life, and the shuttle lifted off just as the creature slammed into the hull again. The crew watched in horror as it clawed at the exterior, desperate to reach them. "Get us out of here," Branson shouted, his heart racing. Tennessee navigated the controls, and with a jolt, they shot into the sky, leaving the planet and the horror behind. The crew was breathless, shock settling over them like a heavy fog. "What the hell was that?" Daniels gasped, her voice trembling. "I don't know," Branson replied, his mind racing. "But we need to warn the others. We're not safe yet." As they ascended into the safety of space, the weight of their experience pressed down on them. The promise of a new world had turned into a nightmare, and they were haunted by the knowledge that whatever they had encountered on the surface was only the beginning. Back on the Covenant, the crew awaited their return, unaware of the darkness that had emerged from the shadows. As the shuttle docked, Branson felt a sense of foreboding. They had ventured into the unknown, and now the unknown was coming for them. Chapter 2. The New World. The Covenant hung in space like a sentinel, its lights flickering against the backdrop of stars. Inside, the atmosphere was charged with tension as the crew processed the harrowing return of the away team. Captain Jacob Branson stood at the center of the command deck, his mind racing with the implications of their encounter. "Report," he commanded, his voice steady but edged with urgency. Tennessee was the first to speak, still catching his breath. "We encountered a creature on the planet. It was fast, aggressive, and unlike anything we've seen before." "Is everyone accounted for?" Branson asked, scanning the faces of his crew. "Yes, but," Daniels interjected, her expression grave. "We brought back a survivor, but he's in shock. We need to debrief him before he can provide any useful information." Branson nodded, recognizing the gravity of the situation. "Walter, assist the survivor in the medical bay. Ensure he's stable and gather any information you can. The rest of you, report to your stations. We need to analyze everything we have." As the crew dispersed, Branson felt the weight of leadership pressing down on him. He moved to the observation window, staring at the distant planet they had barely escaped. It loomed large in his mind, a reminder of the unknown dangers that awaited them. After a few moments, he turned and made his way to the medical bay. Inside, the atmosphere was tense. The survivor, a man named Orem, sat on the examination table, his eyes wide and unfocused. Walter was speaking to him in soothing tones, trying to coax information from the traumatized man. "Orem, can you hear me?" Walter asked gently. "You're safe now. We need to understand what happened down there." Orem blinked rapidly, his breath shallow. "They were everywhere. I thought I was going to die. Can you describe what you saw?" Branson prompted, stepping closer to the table. The survivor's eyes darted around the room, as if searching for something. "There were creatures. They came out of the shadows. They hunted us. Did you see how many?" Branson pressed, hoping to extract crucial details. "I don't know," Orem stammered, his voice trembling. "It was chaos. They moved so fast. We lost people. I barely escaped." Branson exchanged a glance with Walter, who nodded slightly, indicating that they were getting somewhere. "What else can you tell us about the planet? The structures you found?" Orem's face twisted with memory. "There were ruins, technology unlike anything I've ever seen. It felt ancient but advanced. And the creatures, they were part of it. I'm sure of it. Did you see anyone else?" Branson asked, feeling a knot tighten in his stomach. "No," Orem whispered. "Just me. I was the only one who made it out. Everyone else, they were taken." Branson's heart sank. The idea that their mission had turned into a hunt for survival weighed heavily on him. "Thank you, Orem. You've been very brave. We'll get you the help you need." As Branson and Walter exited the medical bay, the captain's mind raced with possibilities. "We need to analyze the data from our scans of the planet," he said, determination hardening his voice. "If there's advanced technology there, we might be able to learn more about these creatures." Walter nodded. "I'll assist with the analysis. However, we should also consider the risk of returning to the planet. The creatures may still be there." "I understand that," Branson replied, his tone resolute. "But we can't ignore the potential for discovery. We need to know what we're dealing with." Back on the command deck, the crew gathered around the central console, their faces illuminated by the glow of screens displaying data from their exploration. Tennessee worked swiftly, piecing together the information they had gathered from the planet. "We have scans of the structures," he said, adjusting the parameters. "But there's a lot of interference. It's almost as if something is blocking our readings. Could it be the atmosphere? Daniels suggested, her brow furrowed in concentration. Possibly, Tennessee agreed. But it's more than that. The patterns are erratic. It's like there's something alive down there. Branson crossed his arms, contemplating their findings. We need to prepare for another mission. If there's technology that could help us understand the creatures, we can't pass up the opportunity. What about Orem? Daniels asked. He's in no condition to go back down there, and we can't risk more lives. I'll lead the team myself, Branson said, his voice firm. We'll go in, gather as much information as we can, and then get out. No heroics. The crew exchanged glances, their expressions a mixture of concern and resolve. They knew the risks, but the lure of discovery hung in the air. All right, Tennessee said, taking a deep breath. Let's get prepped. We'll need gear and weapons. As the crew prepared for the mission, Branson felt the weight of responsibility settle on his shoulders. He was leading them into danger, but he couldn't shake the feeling that they had to confront the unknown. Hours later, the shuttle was ready, stocked with equipment and weapons. The atmosphere was charged with a combination of anxiety and determination as the team boarded. Remember the plan, Branson reiterated, his voice steady. Stick together, maintain communication, and prioritize safety. The shuttle launched from the Covenant, descending toward the planet once more. As they broke through the atmosphere, the landscape came into view, an eerie blend of beauty and desolation. Tennessee piloted the shuttle down, navigating through the thick clouds. The terrain below was as foreboding as before, the ruins looming like ghosts against the horizon. Touching down, he announced, his voice steady despite the tension in the air. The shuttle landed with a soft thud, and the crew prepared to disembark. Branson led the way, stepping into the humid air, the scent of damp earth filling his lungs. Stay close, he instructed, his senses heightened. They approached the ruins, their silhouettes stark against the twilight sky. Inside, the air was thick with dust, the remnants of a civilization long gone. Branson felt a shiver run down his spine as they advanced deeper into the structure, shadows dancing in the corners of his vision. Walter, scan for any signs of life, Branson ordered, his voice low. Scanning now, Walter replied, his tone calm. No life signs detected in this immediate area, but there is a strong electromagnetic field emanating from deeper within the ruins. Let's move, Branson said, leading the team further into the labyrinthine corridors. The walls were adorned with strange symbols that seemed to pulse with energy, igniting a sense of unease among the crew. As they ventured deeper, the silence was oppressive, broken only by the sound of their footsteps echoing through the halls. Branson glanced back at his team, their expressions a mix of determination and apprehension. Keep your eyes open, he warned. We don't know what we're dealing with. Suddenly, a low growl reverberated through the air, sending chills down their spines. The crew halted, instinctively raising their weapons, hearts pounding in unison. What was that? Daniels whispered, her voice barely audible. I don't know, Branson replied, scanning the shadows. But we need to keep moving. They pressed on, adrenaline coursing through their veins. As they rounded a corner, they found themselves in a vast chamber, illuminated by an eerie glow. In the center stood a monolithic structure, pulsating with energy. Walter, what's happening here? Branson asked, his curiosity piqued. It appears to be some kind of power source, Walter replied, his eyes scanning the readings. But the energy levels are off the charts. This technology is far beyond our understanding. Can we access it? Branson inquired, stepping closer to the structure. I can attempt to interface with it, Walter said, moving toward the pulsating core. As Walter approached, the glow intensified, casting strange shadows on the walls. The crew watched, breathless, as he placed his hand on the surface. Establishing connection, Walter said, his voice steady. I'll need a moment. Branson exchanged glances with the others, a mix of hope and dread swirling within him. This technology could hold the key to understanding the creatures and their origins. Suddenly, the ground trembled, and a deafening roar echoed through the chamber. The crew instinctively raised their weapons, panic flooding their senses. Walter, hurry! Branson shouted, his heart racing. I'm trying, Walter replied, his eyes focused on the interface. But there's a massive surge of energy. Before he could finish, the structure erupted with a blinding light, and the walls shook violently. Get back! Branson yelled, pushing the crew away from the core as debris began to fall from above. They scrambled for cover, shielding themselves from the chaos. The ground trembled as the ancient structure seemed to come alive, the energy surging through the air. "Walter, we need to get out of here," Branson shouted, his voice barely audible over the roar. "I'm almost there," Walter called back, his focus unwavering. Just as the tremors intensified, the energy pulse subsided, and the light dimmed. Walter stumbled back, panting as he pulled away from the structure. "I managed to retrieve some data," he said, breathless. "But it's incomplete. We need to analyze it back on the ship. Then let's move," Branson urged, leading the way back toward the exit. As they raced through the corridors, the growls of the creatures echoed behind them, growing louder with each passing moment. The reality of their situation hit hard. They were not alone, and time was running out. They burst into the open air, the shuttle in sight. But as they approached, shadows flitted across the ground, figures moving with terrifying speed. "Get to the shuttle," Branson shouted, adrenaline surging through him. They sprinted forward, the sounds of pursuit closing in. The creatures emerged from the shadows, their forms sleek and predatory, eyes glinting with hunger. "Cover fire," Branson commanded, opening fire as the creatures lunged at them. Shots rang out, echoing through the air as the crew fought for their lives. The creatures dodged and weaved, their movements blurring with unnatural speed. "Get in," Tennessee yelled, already at the shuttle's door, urging the crew to board. One by one, they scrambled inside, Branson firing until the last moment. Just as he was about to leap into the shuttle, a creature lunged at him. He barely managed to duck, the beast narrowly missing him as he dove inside. "Go! Go!" he shouted, adrenaline pumping through his veins. Tennessee slammed the hatch shut, and the engines roared to life. The shuttle lifted off, leaving the chaos behind as they ascended into the sky. As they broke through the atmosphere, the crew collapsed into their seats, panting heavily. The realization of their narrow escape washed over them like a cold wave. "What the hell just happened?" Daniels gasped, her eyes wide with disbelief. Branson took a moment to gather his thoughts. "We retrieved data, but we barely made it out alive. We need to analyze what we have and prepare for the worst." Walter began interfacing with the ship's systems, downloading the data he had gathered. "I'll need time to process this information, but what I retrieved indicates a complex biological system, and the creatures are likely part of that system." "What do you mean?" Tennessee asked, leaning forward. "Based on the readings, it seems the creatures are not just predators. They are integral to the ecosystem of that planet," Walter explained. "Their existence is tied to the technology we encountered." Branson's mind raced as he processed the implications. "So if we return, we'll be stepping into a delicate balance, a system that could either be a boon or a curse." "Exactly," Walter confirmed. "We need to approach this with caution." As the Covenant drifted through the darkness of space, the crew faced an uncertain future. They had glimpsed a world filled with both promise and peril, and the choices they made next would determine their fate. The echoes of the creatures haunted Branson's thoughts, a reminder that the unknown was not just a frontier to be explored, but a force that demanded respect and fear. Chapter 3. Unleashing Horror. The Covenant drifted through the cold void of space, its crew caught in a web of uncertainty. Captain Jacob Branson paced the command deck, his mind racing with the implications of their recent encounter on the alien planet. They had barely escaped with their lives, but the data they retrieved hinted at a complex and dangerous ecosystem, one that demanded further investigation. "Captain," Tennessee said, breaking through Branson's thoughts, "the analysis of the data Walter retrieved is nearly complete. You might want to take a look." Branson nodded, his heart heavy with the weight of responsibility. He moved to the central console, where Walter was already processing the information, a look of concentration etched on his synthetic features. "Show me what we have," Branson ordered, leaning closer to the screen. As the data unfolded, the crew gathered around, their expressions a mix of curiosity and dread. The screen displayed a series of scans from the planet, revealing intricate biological patterns and energy flows that seemed to pulse with life. "Based on these readings," Walter explained, "the technology we encountered appears to be a part of a larger biological network. It seems the creatures we encountered are not just predators. They are a fundamental part of this ecosystem." "What do you mean?" Daniels asked, her brow furrowed. "The data suggests that the creatures are symbiotic with the environment," Walter replied. "They may serve a role in maintaining the balance of this ecosystem, possibly even facilitating the energy transfer we detected." Branson's mind raced with possibilities. So, if we return, we're not just dealing with mindless predators. We're entering a complex web of life that we don't fully understand. Exactly, Walter confirmed. We need to approach this with caution. If we disrupt the balance, we could unleash something far worse than what we've already encountered. A heavy silence filled the room as the crew absorbed this information. They had come seeking knowledge, but now they faced the terrifying reality that they might be stepping into a trap. What's our next move? Tennessee asked, his voice steady despite the tension. Branson took a deep breath, weighing their options. We need to gather more data, but we must be strategic. We can't risk another encounter without a clear plan. We'll prepare for a reconnaissance mission, this time with more resources and backup. The crew nodded in agreement, the resolve hardening within them. They would face the unknown once more, but they would be better prepared. As preparations began, Branson felt a knot of anxiety settle in his stomach. The allure of discovery was overshadowed by the lurking threat of the creatures. The line between exploration and danger blurred, and he couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched. Days passed as the crew worked tirelessly to gather supplies and strategize. Tension hung in the air, palpable and thick. Each member of the crew knew they were venturing into a perilous unknown, but the yearning for understanding pushed them forward. Finally, the day of the reconnaissance mission arrived. Branson stood at the shuttle bay, reviewing the team roster. He had selected a smaller, more agile group this time. Tennessee, Daniels, and Walter would accompany him once more. Orem, still recovering from his ordeal, would remain aboard the Covenant under medical observation. Remember, Branson reminded the team as they gathered in the shuttle. Our primary objective is to gather data and observe the creatures without engaging unless absolutely necessary. We need to understand their behavior. The crew nodded, determination etched on their faces. As the shuttle launched from the Covenant, the familiar landscape of the planet came into view, its dark contours juxtaposed against the vibrant colors of the sky. Tennessee piloted the shuttle expertly, guiding them toward the ruins they had previously explored. As they descended, Branson felt a familiar sense of dread wash over him. The planet was beautiful, but it was also a predator, waiting in the shadows. Touching down, Tennessee announced, his voice steady. The shuttle landed smoothly, and the crew stepped out into the damp, heavy air. Stay close, Branson instructed, leading the way toward the ruins. The atmosphere was thick with tension, each step echoing in the silence. As they approached the entrance, the ominous feeling grew stronger. The shadows seemed to shift, and Branson couldn't shake the sensation of being watched. He glanced back at his team, their expressions reflecting his own unease. Walter, keep scanning for life signs, Branson ordered as they stepped inside the ruins. The air was stale, filled with the remnants of a long-lost civilization. Scanning, Walter replied, his sensors whirring softly. No immediate life signs detected, but the energy levels are fluctuating. It's as if something is stirring. With every step deeper into the structure, the silence became more oppressive. The walls loomed around them, adorned with strange symbols that seemed to pulse with a life of their own. Let's split up and cover more ground, Branson suggested, his instincts pushing him to uncover the mysteries of the ruins. Tennessee, you and Walter take the left corridor. Daniels and I will check the right. The team nodded, and they split off into their respective paths. Branson felt a mix of excitement and trepidation as he moved deeper into the shadowy corridor with Daniels. The air crackled with energy, and he could sense something lurking just beyond the edge of perception. Do you think we'll find anything useful? Daniels asked, her voice barely above a whisper. I hope so, Branson replied, his eyes scanning the walls. But we have to be careful. If the creatures are as intelligent as Walter believes, they might be aware of our presence. As they walked, the corridor opened into a vast chamber, filled with strange machinery that hummed softly. Branson felt a surge of exhilaration. This was unlike anything they had encountered before. What is this place? Daniels murmured, awed by the sight. I don't know, Branson admitted, stepping closer to the machinery. But if we can decipher its function, it could provide us with crucial insights. Suddenly, a low growl echoed through the chamber, freezing them in place. Branson's heart raced as he turned toward the sound. Did you hear that? Daniels whispered, her eyes wide with fear. Yes, Branson replied, his senses heightened. We need to get back to the others. They turned to leave, but before they could reach the exit, the shadows shifted and a creature emerged. It lunged from the darkness, its elongated limbs and glistening teeth catching the dim light. "Run!" Branson shouted, adrenaline surging through him. They sprinted back through the corridor, the creature hot on their heels. It was fast, its movements fluid and predatory. Branson could hear its growls growing louder, echoing off the walls. "Get to the shuttle," he yelled, pushing himself to run faster. They burst into the main chamber, where they had separated from Tennessee and Walter. "Tennessee! Walter!" Branson shouted, panic rising in his chest. "Over here!" Tennessee's voice called from the shadows, and Branson spotted him and Walter at the far side of the chamber, their weapons drawn. "Get back!" Branson urged, realizing they were all in danger. The creature emerged from the corridor, its eyes gleaming with hunger. The team raised their weapons, but Branson felt a surge of uncertainty. They had already seen the creature's agility and speed. Would their guns be enough? "Fire!" Walter commanded, and the air erupted with gunfire. The creature dodged and weaved, its movements almost impossibly agile. Bullets ricocheted off the walls as it lunged at them, narrowly missing Tennessee. "Keep firing," Branson shouted, his heart racing. They needed to drive it back before it could close in on them. But the creature was relentless, darting in and out of the shadows, its growls echoing through the chamber. Branson felt a rush of desperation. They couldn't let it overwhelm them. "Fall back!" he yelled, retreating toward the shuttle. They needed to regroup and rethink their strategy. As they moved, the creature lunged again, this time catching hold of Daniels. She let out a terrified scream as it dragged her backward. "No!" Branson shouted, instinctively rushing forward. "Get her!" Tennessee yelled, but the creature was too fast, pulling Daniels further into the darkness. Branson fought against the urge to panic. "We can't leave her," he shouted, but Walter grabbed his arm, his expression urgent. "We need to regroup. We can't face it without a plan." Branson hesitated, his heart torn. But he knew they couldn't afford to lose anyone else. "All right," he relented, backing away from the creature's lair. "We'll come back for her." With heavy hearts, they sprinted toward the shuttle, the creature's growls echoing behind them. As they reached the hatch, Tennessee slammed the door shut, and they collapsed against it, panting heavily. "What do we do now?" Tennessee gasped, his eyes wild with adrenaline. Branson's mind raced. "We need to analyze what we have. If Daniels is still alive, we'll find a way to rescue her." Walter began interfacing with the shuttle's systems, pulling up data from their scans. "We may be able to locate her if we can determine her life signs," he said, his voice steady. "Do it," Branson commanded, determination flooding through him. They would not abandon their crew member. As Walter worked, Branson felt the weight of the situation pressing down on him. They had come seeking understanding, but instead, they had unleashed a horror that threatened to consume them all. "Got it!" Walter exclaimed, his eyes widening. "I'm detecting a faint life sign in the vicinity of the ruins. It appears to be moving, but it's weak. Can we track it?" Branson asked, hope mingling with fear. "Yes, but we need to be cautious," Walter warned. "The creature will likely be nearby." "Then we'll need to go in prepared," Branson said, his resolve hardening. "We won't leave Daniels behind." They quickly gathered their weapons and supplies, steeling themselves for the return to the ruins. The shuttle's engines hummed softly, a reminder of the danger that awaited them. As they descended once more, the landscape unfolded beneath them, dark, foreboding, and filled with the remnants of a civilization long forgotten. The weight of their mission hung heavy in the air. The knowledge that lives depended on their success. Touching down, Branson led the way, his heart pounding as they approached the entrance to the ruins. Each step felt like a countdown to an inevitable confrontation. "Walter, keep scanning for life signs," Branson instructed, his voice steady despite the anxiety bubbling beneath the surface. "Scanning," Walter replied, his sensors whirring. "I'm detecting the faint signal again. It's coming from deeper within the structure." "Let's move," Branson said, determination fueling his steps. They ventured inside, the shadows closing in around them. The air felt charged with tension, and Branson could feel the presence of the creature lurking just out of sight. They navigated the corridors, following the weak life sign that flickered like a dying star. "Keep your weapons ready," Branson cautioned, the weight of the moment pressing down on him. As they approached the chamber where they had encountered the creature, the atmosphere shifted. The growls echoed through the air, a reminder of the danger that awaited them. "There!" Walter pointed, gesturing toward a shadowy corner of the chamber. Branson's heart raced as they moved closer, and there, crumpled on the floor, was Daniels. She was pale and trembling, but alive. Daniels! Branson rushed forward, kneeling beside her. Are you okay? I think so, she whispered, her voice weak. I thought I was done for. Let's get you out of here, Branson said, helping her to her feet. But before they could leave, the creature emerged from the shadows, its eyes glinting with hunger. Get back! Tennessee shouted, raising his weapon. The creature lunged, and chaos erupted as they fought to protect Daniels. The air filled with the sounds of growls and gunfire, a cacophony of survival. Branson felt a surge of adrenaline as he fired at the creature, but it was relentless, dodging their shots with uncanny agility. They needed to escape, but the creature was blocking their only way out. Fall back! Branson shouted, pushing Daniels toward the exit. We need to regroup. As they retreated, the creature followed, its growls echoing in the chamber. Branson could feel the pressure mounting, the weight of their situation threatening to crush them. Move! He yelled, determination fueling his steps as they sprinted toward the exit. Just as they reached the threshold, the creature lunged again, teeth bared. Branson pushed Daniels forward, instinctively shielding her as it barreled into him. The impact sent him sprawling to the ground, and he felt a surge of panic as the creature loomed over him. But before it could strike, Tennessee fired, hitting it squarely in the side. Get up! Tennessee shouted, urgency lacing his voice. Branson scrambled to his feet, adrenaline coursing through him as he rejoined the others. They dashed out of the chamber, the creature hot on their heels. As they burst into the open air, the shuttle loomed before them, a beacon of hope amidst the chaos. Get inside! Branson yelled, urgency propelling them forward. They scrambled into the shuttle, slamming the hatch shut just as the creature lunged at them again. The impact reverberated through the metal, a reminder of the danger they had narrowly escaped. Take off! Branson shouted at Tennessee, his heart racing. The shuttle's engines roared to life, and they shot into the sky, leaving the chaos of the planet behind. Inside the shuttle, they collapsed against the walls, panting heavily. The adrenaline began to ebb, replaced by the weight of what they had endured. Is everyone okay? Branson asked, scanning their faces. I'm fine, Daniels replied, though her voice trembled. Just shaken. What about the creature? Tennessee asked, his brow furrowed with concern. We need to analyze what we've learned, Branson said, determination hardening his voice. This isn't over. As they made their way back to the Covenant, Branson felt the weight of the mission settle over him. They had faced unimaginable horror, but they had also uncovered truths that could change everything. Back aboard the ship, they gathered in the command deck, the atmosphere heavy with unspoken fears. Walter began processing the data they had gathered, his expression focused. Based on our scans, we can confirm that the creatures are indeed part of a complex ecosystem, he explained. They are not just predators, they serve a purpose within that environment. What purpose? Branson asked, his curiosity piqued. They appear to be guardians of the technology we encountered, Walter replied. Any intrusion triggers a defensive response, which explains their aggressive behavior. Then we need to approach this differently, Branson said, determination fueling his resolve. We can't treat them as mere monsters. If we want to understand their role, we need to find a way to communicate. The crew exchanged glances, the weight of the decision hanging in the air. They had come seeking knowledge, but now they faced a delicate balance between exploration and danger. As the Covenant drifted through the stars, Branson knew they were standing on the precipice of discovery. The road ahead would be fraught with challenges, but he was ready to face whatever lay ahead. They would uncover the mysteries of the planet and the creatures that inhabited it, no matter the cost. Chapter 4. The Android's Agenda. The Covenant hung suspended in the vastness of space, its crew caught in a whirlwind of uncertainty and fear. In the command center, Captain Jacob Branson stood before the main console, where data from their recent missions flickered across the screens. They had barely escaped the horrors of the alien planet, and now a new, unsettling question loomed over them. What exactly were the creatures they had encountered, and how could they understand their role within the ecosystem? Walter, can you analyze the data further? Branson asked, his voice steady despite the turmoil within. We need to know as much as possible about those creatures before we consider returning. Of course, Captain, Walter replied, his synthetic voice calm and reassuring. I will begin processing the collected data immediately. As the android set to work, Branson felt a mix of gratitude and unease. Walter was designed to assist and protect the crew, offering a semblance of stability amid the chaos. But in the back of his mind, Branson couldn't help but compare him to David, the earlier android from the Prometheus mission. David's actions had been driven by a thirst for knowledge, often at the expense of human lives. Was Walter truly different? The crew gathered around the console, their faces etched with concern. Tennessee leaned against the wall, arms crossed, while Daniel stood close to Branson, her expression a mixture of determination and dread. "What do we do next?" Tennessee asked, breaking the heavy silence. "We can't just sit here and wait for answers." "I agree," Branson said, his mind racing. "We need a plan. If those creatures are guardians of the technology we encountered, it's possible that they possess knowledge we can use. But we have to approach this delicately. We can't assume they'll react the same way twice." Daniels nodded, her brow furrowed in thought. "What if we tried to establish communication? If we can demonstrate that we mean no harm, perhaps we can learn more about their purpose." "That sounds risky," Tennessee replied, his skepticism evident. "What if they see us as a threat again? We barely made it out alive last time." "Risk is part of exploration," Branson countered, his resolve firm. "We have to understand the stakes involved. If we can learn to coexist, it could change everything. We're not just explorers, we're ambassadors." Walter interrupted, his voice steady. "I've completed the initial analysis of the data from the planet. The creature's aggressive behavior is likely a defensive response to perceived threats. Their biology suggests they are highly intelligent and capable of complex communication, possibly through pheromones or body language. Then we need to find a way to communicate effectively," Branson said, feeling a surge of hope. "If we can understand their signals, we might be able to negotiate a peaceful interaction." "Let's prepare for a return mission," Daniels suggested, her eyes alight with determination. "We can bring equipment designed for analyzing pheromones and other biological signals." As they began to strategize, Branson felt a flicker of anxiety in his chest. He had seen firsthand how quickly things could escalate on that planet. But he also recognized the potential for discovery, for understanding a life form that was so fundamentally different from their own. "Let's finalize our gear and make sure we're prepared for anything," Branson instructed, his voice resolute. "Tennessee, gather the necessary equipment. Daniels, work with Walter to set up the communication devices. We'll leave in 2 hours." As the crew dispersed to prepare, Branson remained at the console, staring at the swirling data on the screen. A sense of foreboding washed over him. They were stepping into a world governed by rules they didn't yet understand, and the consequences of their actions could be dire. Meanwhile, Walter continued his analysis, processing the data with remarkable efficiency. He had become an invaluable asset to the crew, but Branson couldn't shake the lingering doubts. Would Walter's programming hold true in the face of danger? Would he prioritize the crew's safety over the pursuit of knowledge? "Walter," Branson said, turning to the android, "can you assure me that your actions will prioritize the crew's safety above all else?" "Captain, my primary directive is to assist and protect the crew," Walter replied, his tone unwavering. "I will do everything within my programming to ensure your safety." Branson studied Walter's expressionless face, searching for any sign of duplicity. "What about your understanding of the creatures? How will you approach them?" "I will analyze their behavior and respond accordingly," Walter explained. "My goal is to facilitate communication while ensuring the crew's safety. I believe that understanding their signals is key to establishing a peaceful interaction." Branson nodded, although a part of him remained uneasy. He hoped that Walter's programming would hold true in the heat of the moment. As the android turned back to his analysis, Branson couldn't help but wonder if they were placing too much faith in technology and not enough in their own instincts. 2 hours later, the crew gathered in the shuttle bay, equipped and ready for their return to the planet. Branson took a moment to assess his team, their faces a mix of determination and anxiety. He felt the weight of leadership settle heavily on his shoulders. "Remember, our goal is to observe and communicate," he reminded them. "We're here to learn, not to fight. We need to establish trust with these creatures." Tennessee nodded, adjusting his gear. "Let's hope they're willing to listen." As they boarded the shuttle, Branson felt a surge of adrenaline. The familiar landscape unfolded beneath them as they descended, the lush greenery contrasting sharply with the shadows that lurked within the ruins. "Touching down," Tennessee announced, his voice steady as the shuttle landed smoothly. "Stay close," Branson instructed, stepping out into the humid air. The atmosphere felt charged with tension, and he could sense the eyes of the planet upon them. They moved cautiously toward the ruins, the air thick with uncertainty. Branson's heart raced as they approached the entrance, the shadows beckoning them into the unknown. "Walter, keep scanning for any signs of the creatures," Branson ordered, his instincts on high alert. "Scanning," Walter replied, his sensors whirring softly. No immediate life signs detected, but the energy levels are fluctuating, suggesting activity deeper within the structure. "Let's proceed carefully," Branson said, leading the way into the dimly lit corridor. The walls loomed around them, adorned with ancient symbols that seemed to pulse with energy. As they ventured deeper, the silence grew oppressive, the shadows creeping closer. Branson could feel the weight of their presence, an awareness that they were not alone. "Stay alert," he cautioned, his senses heightened. "We need to be ready for anything." Suddenly, a low growl reverberated through the air, echoing off the walls. The crew froze, instincts screaming at them to be on guard. "Did you hear that?" Daniels whispered, her voice trembling. "Yes," Branson replied, scanning the shadows. "Walter, can you pinpoint the source?" Attempting to triangulate the sound, Walter said, his expression focused. "It appears to be coming from the chamber ahead." Branson felt a surge of adrenaline as they pressed forward, hearts pounding in unison. The growl echoed again, closer this time, a reminder that they were venturing into dangerous territory. As they entered the chamber, the atmosphere shifted. The air felt charged with a strange energy, and the growls intensified, reverberating within the walls. Branson scanned the room, his heart racing. In the center stood a massive structure, pulsating with energy. The walls were adorned with intricate carvings, and the air crackled with tension. "Walter, what do you see?" Branson asked, stepping closer to the structure. "I believe this is a central hub for the creatures," Walter replied. "It may serve as a communication point or power source. The energy signatures are unlike anything we've encountered before." Suddenly, the growling ceased, replaced by an eerie silence. The crew exchanged uneasy glances, realizing the creatures were watching them. "Stay close," Branson warned, instinctively positioning himself in front of Daniels. "We need to show we mean no harm." Just as he finished speaking, a figure emerged from the shadows, a creature, sleek and imposing. It stood tall, its eyes glinting with intelligence. Branson felt a rush of fear, but he held his ground. "Walter, can you analyze its behavior?" he asked, his voice steady. "Analyzing now," Walter replied, focused on the creature. "It appears to be assessing us, possibly gauging our intentions." The creature advanced slowly, its movements graceful and deliberate. Branson could feel the tension in the air, a palpable energy that crackled between them. "Let's try to communicate," he suggested, his heart racing. "If it's intelligent, it may respond to our signals." As they stood their ground, Branson raised his hands slowly, palms facing outward to signal peace. "We come in peace," he said clearly, his voice steady. "We seek to understand." The creature paused, its eyes narrowing as it studied them. For a moment, the world seemed to hold its breath, suspended in an uneasy silence. "Walter, can you enhance our signals?" Branson asked, desperate to bridge the gap. "I can attempt to emit low-frequency sounds and pheromonal signals," Walter replied. "It may help convey our intentions." "Do it," Branson urged. Walter adjusted his settings, and a series of low-frequency sounds emitted from his speakers. The vibrations resonated through the air, creating an atmosphere of calm. As the creature listened, its posture relaxed slightly. Branson could see the tension in its muscles ease, and he felt a flicker of hope. "Keep it going, Walter," Branson encouraged. "We need to establish trust." The creature moved closer, its gaze fixed on Walter. It seemed to respond to the frequencies, tilting its head in curiosity. Branson held his breath, praying that their efforts were not in vain. Suddenly, another growl echoed from the shadows, and Branson felt his heart drop. A second creature emerged, more aggressive and agitated. The first creature turned, a low hiss escaping its throat. "Walter, what do we do?" Branson asked, anxiety coursing through him. "Maintain the signals," Walter instructed. "We must show that we are not a threat." Branson felt the weight of the moment pressing down on him. He knew they were treading a delicate line between diplomacy and danger. As the second creature advanced, the first stepped in front of it, a protective gesture that surprised Branson. "It's trying to defend us," he realized, hope flickering within him. The first creature emitted a low sound in response to the second, a communication that spoke of caution. Branson watched intently, realizing that they were witnessing a moment of negotiation in a world governed by primal instincts. "Keep the signals steady," Branson urged Walter, his heart racing. "We need to bridge the gap between them." Walter continued to emit the pheromonal signals, and the first creature maintained its defensive stance, its eyes locked on the second. For a moment, the air was thick with tension, a standoff between instincts and understanding. Slowly, the second creature hesitated, its growls softening as it processed the situation. Branson felt a surge of hope as it began to back away, its posture shifting from aggression to curiosity. "Is it working?" Tennessee whispered, his eyes wide with disbelief. "I believe so," Walter replied, his tone steady. "They are communicating in a way that suggests they are reassessing the threat." As the second creature retreated, the first turned back to Branson and his team, its eyes glinting with intelligence. Branson felt a rush of gratitude. They had managed to establish a connection. "Thank you," he said softly, his voice filled with sincerity. "We mean no harm. We seek to learn." The first creature tilted its head, as if considering his words. Branson held his breath, waiting for a response. Suddenly, the creature emitted a series of low, melodic sounds that resonated through the chamber. The vibrations filled the air, creating an atmosphere of calm and understanding. "What is it doing?" Daniels asked, her voice a mix of awe and fear. "I think it's trying to communicate," Walter replied, his sensors whirring as he analyzed the sounds. "It may be conveying information about its role within the ecosystem." Branson felt a spark of inspiration. "If we can learn to interpret its signals, we might be able to understand their purpose and role in protecting this world." As the creature continued to emit sounds, Branson focused intently on the patterns and rhythms, trying to discern meaning within the communication. It was unlike anything he had encountered before, a language composed of vibrations and resonance. "Walter, can you analyze the frequency patterns?" Branson asked, determination flooding through him. "Analyzing now," Walter replied, his expression focused. "I believe I can map the sound structure to identify potential meanings." As the android worked, Branson felt a sense of urgency. They were on the brink of a breakthrough, and he couldn't let the opportunity slip away. The first creature continued to emit sounds, its eyes locked onto Branson's. He felt a connection, a recognition that transcended words. They were both explorers, seeking understanding in a world filled with uncertainty. Suddenly, the second creature lunged forward, breaking the moment of peace. Branson's heart raced as he instinctively stepped back, ready to defend his team. "Walter, maintain our signals," he shouted, adrenaline surging through him. The first creature reacted instantly, positioning itself between Branson's team and the advancing threat. It emitted a series of urgent sounds, its body tense with aggression. "Is it trying to protect us?" Daniels gasped, watching the interaction with wide eyes. "Yes," Walter confirmed, his tone steady. "It recognizes the second creature as a potential threat to our safety." Branson felt a surge of gratitude toward the first creature. They had established a bond, a fragile understanding that transcended the boundaries of species. "Stay close and stay calm," Branson instructed, his voice steady. The first creature continued to emit sounds, its tone shifting to a more rhythmic pattern. Branson felt the urge to respond, to show gratitude and understanding. He raised his hands slowly again, palms open, and spoke clearly. "Thank you for protecting us," he said, sincerity flooding his voice. "We are here to learn, not to harm." The second creature hesitated, its growls softening as it processed the situation. The first creature maintained its defensive posture, but Branson could sense a shift in the air, a moment of potential peace. "Walter, can you map the sounds to create a basic understanding of their language?" Branson asked, determination hardening his resolve. "I'll attempt to analyze the patterns," Walter replied, his sensors whirring as he focused on the sounds. As the first creature continued to communicate, Branson felt a flicker of hope. They were on the brink of a breakthrough, a chance to understand the creatures and their role within the ecosystem. The second creature edged closer, its posture shifting from aggression to curiosity. Branson could sense the tension in the air, a fragile balance between fear and understanding. "Keep the signal steady," he urged Walter. "We need to bridge the gap." With every sound emitted from the first creature, Branson felt the connection deepen. They were both explorers, seeking understanding in a world filled with uncertainty. As the tension began to ease, Branson realized that they were not just encountering creatures. They were forging a connection that could change the course of their mission. In that moment, Branson understood that their journey was not just about exploration. It was about understanding the delicate balance of life and the interconnectedness of all beings. The creatures were not merely guardians of technology. They were part of a larger narrative, a web of life that demanded respect and understanding. As the first creature continued to communicate, Branson felt a surge of hope. They were no longer strangers in a hostile world. They were allies, united in their quest for knowledge. "Let's continue to learn from them," Branson said, his voice steady. "Together, we can uncover the mysteries of this world." Chapter 5. A Dark Conclusion. The Covenant floated in the blackness of space, a stark contrast to the swirling colors of the nearby nebula. Inside, the atmosphere was heavy with anticipation and unease. Captain Jacob Branson stood at the command console, staring at the data projected before him. After their encounter with the creatures on the alien planet, they had gathered an unprecedented amount of information, but the implications weighed heavily on him. "Walter," Branson said, his voice steady but laced with tension, "how are we progressing with the analysis of the creature's signals?" Walter, the ship's synthetic crew member, was busy interfacing with the ship's systems, processing the complex data they had gathered during their recent encounter. "I'm mapping the sound patterns and attempting to identify key frequencies that correlate with specific meanings. However, the complexity of their communication system is far beyond our initial estimates." Branson nodded, feeling the pressure of time bearing down on them. "We need to understand their language. If we're going to navigate this situation effectively, we must establish a clear line of communication." Daniels approached, her expression a mix of determination and concern. "We need to consider the risk, Captain. If we misinterpret their signals, it could provoke another aggressive response." "I understand," Branson replied, his gaze unwavering. "But we have an opportunity here that we cannot ignore. If we can forge a connection, we might learn not only about the creatures, but about the technology that seems to bind them to this world." Tennessee, leaning against a nearby console, crossed his arms and looked at Branson. "We've already seen how dangerous they can be. If we go back, we need to be prepared for anything. We can't assume they'll be welcoming." "I agree," Branson responded, his tone resolute. "We'll return to the planet, but this time we'll approach it with caution. We'll take extra equipment and establish a perimeter. Our primary goal will be communication and observation." After a tense discussion, the crew began preparing for their next mission. Supplies were gathered, equipment calibrated, and strategies discussed. As Branson oversaw the preparations, he couldn't shake the feeling that they were standing at the precipice of something monumental, a chance to bridge the gap between two worlds. A few hours later, the shuttle was ready for launch. As they boarded, Branson felt the weight of responsibility settle on his shoulders. This mission felt different. It was no longer just about exploration. It was about understanding and respect. "All right, let's keep our focus," Branson instructed as they strapped in. "Walter, keep scanning for any signs of the creatures as we descend. Tennessee, you're in charge of navigation. Daniels, monitor our communication equipment." "Understood." They all replied in unison, the camaraderie palpable even in the face of uncertainty. The shuttle launched from the Covenant, cutting through the atmosphere of the alien planet. As they descended, the lush greenery slowly came into view, juxtaposed against the remnants of the ancient ruins that had sparked both their curiosity and fear. "Touching down," Tennessee announced, his voice steady as the shuttle landed smoothly on the ground. Branson took a deep breath, feeling the familiar mix of excitement and apprehension. "Let's move out," he said, leading the way as they exited the shuttle. The air was thick and humid, the sense of damp earth and vegetation mingling in a heady mix. The ruins loomed ahead, a testament to a civilization long gone but still filled with secrets. "Walter, begin your scans as we approach the site," Branson instructed, his senses heightened. "Scanning for life signs and energy fluctuations," Walter replied, his sensors whirring softly. "No immediate threats detected, but the energy levels in the vicinity of the ruins are rising." "Keep us informed," Branson said, his heart racing as they moved deeper into the shadows of the ruins. As they navigated the corridors, the atmosphere felt charged with tension. The symbols on the walls pulsed faintly, almost as if they were alive, whispering secrets of the past. "Do you think we'll encounter the creatures again?" Daniels asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "Possibly," Branson replied, his eyes scanning the shadows. "But if we can establish communication, we might be able to avoid confrontation. Suddenly, a low growl echoed through the corridor, sending chills down their spines. The crew froze, hearts pounding in unison. "Walter, any updates?" Branson asked, his voice tense. "Life signs detected. 2 creatures approaching rapidly," Walter replied, his expression focused. "They appear to be agitated." "Get ready," Branson shouted, quickly positioning himself in front of Daniels. The growls grew louder, reverberating through the air as the creatures emerged from the shadows. They were sleek and powerful, their eyes glinting with a predatory intelligence. "Maintain your positions," Branson commanded, raising his hands to signal peace. "We're not here to harm you." The first creature paused, its head tilting slightly as it assessed them. The second creature, however, moved closer, its growls intensifying. "Walter, can you emit the pheromonal signals?" Branson urged. "We need to establish a connection." "Attempting to establish communication," Walter replied, activating the devices designed to emit calming frequencies. As the sounds resonated through the air, the first creature seemed to relax slightly, its posture shifting from aggression to curiosity. Branson felt a flicker of hope. "Keep it steady," he instructed, his heart racing. "We can do this." The first creature emitted a series of melodic sounds, its gaze locked onto Branson. He felt a connection forming, a fragile understanding that transcended words. "Can you interpret that?" Tennessee asked, his voice tense. "Not yet," Walter replied, focused on the signals. "But the patterns suggest it is trying to communicate." Branson took a deep breath, feeling a surge of determination. "Let's respond. If we can repeat their sounds, we might be able to create a dialogue." He began to mimic the creature's sounds, carefully modulating his voice to match the frequencies. The first creature's eyes widened, and it emitted another series of sounds, its tone shifting as if responding to Branson's efforts. "Keep going," Daniels urged, watching intently. As Branson continued to mimic the creature, the second one hesitated, its aggressive posture softening. He could feel the tension in the air begin to dissipate as they established a rhythm of communication. "Walter, are you capturing this?" Branson asked, his heart racing. "Yes," Walter replied. "I'm recording the sound patterns, and I believe I can begin mapping their meanings based on our interactions." The first creature moved closer, its eyes glinting with intelligence. Branson felt a rush of excitement. They were breaking through barriers that had once seemed insurmountable. Suddenly, the second creature lunged forward, breaking the moment of connection. Branson's heart raced as he instinctively stepped back, ready to defend his team. "Walter, maintain the pheromonal signals," Branson shouted, adrenaline surging through him. The first creature reacted instantly, positioning itself between Branson's team and the advancing threat. It emitted a series of urgent sounds, its body tense with aggression. "Is it trying to protect us?" Daniels asked, her voice a mix of awe and fear. "Yes," Walter confirmed. "It recognizes the second creature as a potential threat to our safety." Branson felt a surge of gratitude toward the first creature. The bond they were forming was more profound than he had anticipated. They were not just explorers. They were allies in an unfamiliar world. As the second creature hesitated, the first creature continued to emit sounds, its tone shifting to a more rhythmic pattern. Branson felt the urge to respond, to show gratitude and understanding. "Thank you for protecting us," he said softly, his voice filled with sincerity. "We are here to learn, not to harm." The first creature tilted its head, as if considering his words. Branson held his breath, waiting for a response. Suddenly, the second creature lunged again, its growls breaking the fragile moment. The first creature moved in front of Branson, its body tense and ready to defend. "Get back!" Branson shouted, adrenaline surging through him. As the second creature approached, the first creature emitted a series of commanding sounds, its posture firm and unwavering. For a moment, it felt like the world held its breath, the outcome hanging in the balance. "Walter, what's happening?" Branson asked, heart racing. "The first creature is attempting to assert dominance over the second," Walter explained. "It's trying to establish a hierarchy." Branson felt a mix of hope and fear. They were witnessing a moment of negotiation, a dance of power that transcended species. As the second creature hesitated, the first creature continued to communicate, its sounds resonating through the air. Branson felt the tension ease slightly, a flicker of understanding bridging the gap between them. "Let's keep the communication going," Branson urged, mimicking the sounds of the first creature again. "We need to show we're allies." As they continued to communicate, the second creature began to retreat, its growls softening as it processed the situation. Branson felt a rush of relief wash over him. They were making progress. But just as he thought they were turning a corner, the ground beneath them trembled, and a deafening roar echoed through the air. The chamber shook violently, and debris rained down from above. "Get back!" Branson shouted, instinctively pushing Daniels behind him. The first creature reacted instantly, moving to shield them from the falling debris. The second creature hesitated, its attention drawn to the chaos unfolding around them. "Walter, what's happening?" Branson yelled, his heart racing. "The structure appears to be destabilizing," Walter replied, his sensors whirring as he assessed the situation. "We need to evacuate immediately." "Fall back," Branson commanded, leading the way as they sprinted toward the exit. The ground continued to tremble, and the sound of crashing debris echoed behind them. As they rushed through the corridors, the shadows seemed to close in, the air thick with dust and fear. Branson's heart raced as he led his team, knowing they had to reach the shuttle before it was too late. "Keep moving," he shouted, adrenaline coursing through his veins. "We can't let the creatures catch us." The first creature followed closely, its growls echoing through the air as it kept pace with them. Branson could feel the tension rising, the uncertainty of their situation weighing heavily on him. "Where's the second creature?" Daniels gasped, glancing back as they ran. "I don't know," Branson replied, his mind racing. "But we can't afford to stop." They reached the entrance of the ruins, but the ground continued to shake violently, making it difficult to maintain balance. Branson glanced back to see the second creature emerging from the shadows, its eyes locked onto them with a predatory intensity. "Get to the shuttle," he shouted, urgency flooding his voice. As they sprinted outside, Branson felt a surge of hope as the shuttle came into view. But before they could reach it, the second creature lunged forward, blocking their path. "Stop!" Branson yelled, raising his hands in a gesture of peace. "We're not here to fight." The first creature stepped forward, positioning itself between Branson's team and the advancing threat. It emitted a series of sounds, its posture tense and protective. "Walter, can you analyze the second creature's behavior?" Branson shouted. "I'm attempting to assess its intentions," Walter replied, focused on the creature. "But it appears agitated." "Let's keep the communication going," Branson urged. He began to mimic the sounds of the first creature again, hoping to bridge the gap between them. As he continued, the second creature hesitated, its growls softening as it processed the situation. The first creature maintained its defensive posture, but Branson could sense a shift in the air, a moment of potential peace. "Don't give up," Daniels urged, her voice steady despite the chaos. "We can make this work." Just then, the ground trembled again, and a loud crack echoed through the air. Branson felt a surge of panic as the structure behind them began to collapse. "Move!" he shouted, urging everyone forward. The first creature lunged at the second, a protective gesture that surprised Branson. "Get to the shuttle!" Branson yelled, adrenaline propelling them forward. They sprinted toward the shuttle, hearts racing as they reached the hatch. Just as they stepped inside, the ground shook violently, and debris rained down around them. "Go! Go!" Branson shouted to Tennessee, who was already initiating the launch sequence. The shuttle's engines roared to life, and they shot into the sky, leaving the chaos of the planet behind. Inside, the crew collapsed against the walls, panting heavily. "Is everyone okay?" Branson asked, scanning their faces. "I'm fine," Daniels replied, though her voice trembled with anxiety. "Just shaken." "What about the creatures?" Tennessee asked, his brow furrowed with concern. "What just happened down there?" Branson took a moment to gather his thoughts. "We had a breakthrough, but it was overshadowed by the structural collapse. The first creature was trying to protect us, but we still don't understand the full implications of our interaction." Walter began interfacing with the ship's systems, processing the data they had gathered. "I believe the first creature is a guardian of the technology," he explained. "It was attempting to defend its territory while also trying to communicate." "Then we need to analyze what we've learned," Branson said, determination hardening his voice. "If we can understand their role within the ecosystem, we may be able to establish a more peaceful coexistence." As they made their way back to the Covenant, a sense of unease settled over Branson. They had encountered unimaginable horror, but they had also made progress in understanding the creatures. The line between exploration and danger was thin, and he felt the weight of their mission pressing down on him. Back aboard the Covenant, The crew gathered in the command deck, the atmosphere heavy with unspoken fears. Walter began processing the data they had gathered, his expression focused. Based on our scans, we can confirm that the creatures are indeed part of a complex ecosystem, he explained. They are not just predators, they serve a purpose within that environment. What purpose? Branson asked, his curiosity piqued. They appear to be guardians of the technology we encountered, Walter replied. Any intrusion triggers a defensive response, which explains their aggressive behavior. Branson felt a knot form in his stomach. So, if we return, we'll be stepping into a delicate balance, a system that could either be a boon or a curse. Exactly, Walter confirmed. We need to approach this with caution. As the Covenant drifted through the stars, Branson knew they were standing on the precipice of discovery. The road ahead would be fraught with challenges, but he was ready to face whatever lay ahead. They would uncover the mysteries of the planet and the creatures that inhabited it, no matter the cost. But as he stared out into the endless void of space, a sinking feeling settled in his chest. The shadows of the creatures loomed large in his mind, a haunting reminder that the unknown could turn deadly in an instant. Prepare for another mission, he said, determination hardening his voice. We will return to the planet, and this time we will establish a connection. As the crew began to prepare, Branson felt the weight of his decision settle over him. They had come seeking knowledge, but now they faced the terrifying reality that their pursuit of understanding could lead them into even darker depths. The shadows of the unknown were closing in, and the future remained uncertain, a haunting reminder that in the depths of space, the line between exploration and horror was perilously thin. Thank you for joining us on this thrilling journey through the stars and shadows. Your presence made this adventure all the more meaningful, and we hope you found yourself captivated by the twists and turns of the story. If you enjoyed this tale, we invite you to like, share, and subscribe. By doing so, you not only support our storytelling, but also become part of a community that shares a passion for exploration and imagination. Your engagement helps us bring more stories to life, each one filled with wonder and discovery. As we continue to delve into new realms and weave intricate narratives, we look forward to having you alongside us for the next chapter. Together, we can uncover more mysteries, face new challenges, and embark on unforgettable adventures. So keep your sense of wonder alive and stay tuned for what lies ahead. We can't wait to share more stories with you, and we hope to see you in our next adventure. Until then, keep dreaming and exploring.